Welcome, everyone. Nice to have you here. This is the next installment of Analytics in Action, how-to webinar series hosted by Association Analytics. I am Katrina McAfee. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Association Analytics. We're going to give it just a minute for everyone to get logged on. In the meantime, just a few housekeeping items. As always, we'll be recording this, so we'll send that out tomorrow in a follow-up email, so you can look out for that if you want to share it with your colleagues or revisit any of the content. Also, if you have questions throughout, we want you to participate and ask those questions. Please add questions to the Q&A section if you want us to not miss them. Sometimes when they are in the chat, they may get lost, although we'll try to keep up with that as well. And then in the chat, just talk amongst each other. Let us know where you're calling in from. And then just something fun, since Greg and Bill and I were just discussing this before we went live here. Let us know what your favorite sports team is. I was super excited that college football is happening after this summer. I'm in Gainesville, Florida, so I'm a diehard Gator fan. Go Gators. If there's any Seminoles or Georgia fans in the crowd, we can fight later. So add that to the chat. And we'll just give it another maybe 30 seconds for people to get on, and then we'll get started. Boo Gators, go Dogs. I knew there'd be somebody. We got to go Gators in there. Penn State.
The Knights. All right.
All right, Dave loses points for being an Eagles fan.
Dave, come on.
Come on, seriously.
Everyone, just remember to change your to setting to panelists and attendees if you want to chat with everybody. If you have something specific for the panelists, obviously you can change it to just
Warriors. All right.
Go Knights. Is that UCF? I feel like it's UCF.
We are Penn State. All right.
All right. I think we can go ahead and get started. We got a good group here. So today you are here for the next how-to session. We'll be discussing how to boost your event registration revenue with data today. Obviously, we've had lots of virtual events over this past year, have some in-person events coming back, maybe this year, definitely, 2022, I'm sure most everyone will be back to in-person. So that's what we'll be discussing today. Today, your hosts are, we have Bill Conforti down, well, he's on my bottom. I'm not sure where he is on your screen. He's our SVP of Strategy and Solutions at Association Analytics. He's been in the software products and services industry for over 20 years, so very knowledgeable in the space. And then we also have Greg Pollock. He's our VP of Sales. He's spent his entire career working with associations and for companies that work for associations. So in great hands. Both of these guys are well versed in the industry. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Greg, I believe.
Yeah, thanks. I spent a lot of time thinking about events, registration, exhibit sales, attendee registration, and we're going to pass on some exciting insights for you today with some specific tactics on how to actually boost that event registration. If you've been a part of our webinar series for a while now, you know that your feedback is critical. We launched this whole series based on your feedback that you wanted more how-to sessions, so we started doing them. We've been listening to your feedback, and you told us we were talking too much PowerPoint and not showing enough examples and concrete ways to do this. So today we're changing up our timing a little bit. We're going to show you a little bit more about how to. We're going to get more concrete examples about how to do this because that was your feedback. Let us know how we did at the end of this. We'll do another poll. Let us know feedback if we did well, if we can adjust it, how we can best provide you the content you're looking for. So today we're going to be talking all about event data and some of the challenges you run into. Bill's going to talk to us about sort of looking into the future and making sure that we're setting ourselves up now for success. We're going to go over some key questions you should be asking yourself. We're going to then walk through in software how to do those sort of things. Obviously, we'll do a debrief at the end of that. We'll summarize our key takeaways and some questions. Hopefully, we'll have some fun and you'll learn a couple things throughout the process. We highly encourage interaction. So drop comments in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking. Tell us if you love what we're talking about. If you disagree with us, please feel free to tell us in the chat. We'll be happy to talk about it. And of course, you can use that Q&A if you want so we don't miss it. With that said, I'm going to tag Bill in for the next slide.
All right. Yeah, so this is a quick summary on who is Association Analytics. We won't spend a long time on this one. I think a lot of you have been with us before. We're a local company to the DC area. We specialize only in analytics for associations. We have a product called Acumen, which Greg will be walking you through here today. Lucky enough to have a 100% client retention rate. And again, we've been doing this for a long time, so 20 plus years. And the last 4 to 5, focus exclusively in the product space around analytics. So feel free to check us out on the web if you're interested in more information on any of that. So I'm going to get started with the poll question, right? I mean, so Katrina sort of teed this up earlier, and we know that 2020, pretty much everyone was all virtual. So our question now is, will your association host an in-person conference or trade show in 2021?
So I think this is a really good question. Are we having an in-person event in 2021, this calendar year? So yes, we've got a location and a date. We're going to be there in person. No, we're staying 100% virtual this year, or hybrid. And I think the answer for hybrid is we see the value in virtual, but we see the value in physical, and we're going to do both at the same time. We're going to have a physical presence, but if you can't make it in person, you can attend virtually. I'm really excited to hear the answers, because I don't know what the answer is going to be. Normally, when we ask these questions, we sort of have an idea where we think the answer is going to fit. For this one, I don't really know what everybody's going to say, so I'm excited to see what you all have an answer for us today.
Yeah, and if you choose hybrid, I'd be curious to know. Just drop it in the chat if it was like you'd always done hybrid, right? There's probably a few there. I don't think there are many. But, or if it's just like, hey, the virtual thing worked out really well for us, so we want to keep the parts of that and roll with that going forward. So if we can see the answers, please. Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So we got a lot of people going back. We got some that are sticking with virtual. Maybe those are ones that already had it this year, right? They had it early in the year, or they had to commit one way or the other before we really knew what was going to happen. And then for the hybrid folks, right, let us know if that's a decision made based on this year's results, or if it's something that you'd always done. Okay, awesome. So let's that one was more for curiosity. This next one is also a poll question, but this is kind of more pertinent to today's specific discussion, right? So take a look at these, and sorry to make you look at charts and graphs, this early on in the presentation, but the idea is, if you were to graph your the trend in your events revenue, and hopefully this is something that you do, and which one of these looks most like your trend, right? So is it kind of trending up and it goes up a little bit year over year, kind of in a linear fashion like A? B is just the opposite, right? I mean, we're losing a few year over year and it kind of stays steady. C, did you have a drop off recently in the last few years? Did you see sort of a sharp drop off or a sharp increase, right? If you're in D. E is just sort of goes up and down year over year, but stays mostly steady. And then F is you don't know. So take a look at those. Let us know which one looks like yours. And I think this one will be real interesting to take a look at.
What a fun question. Excited to hear the answer for this one too. Also, Barbara dropped a comment in the chat here. It may not be whether you can go, it's do you have budget to go? Do we have travel budget? Is that coming back or not? Interesting question there. Do we have travel budget? Do you have to fly somewhere to go to the event? Does that increase cost, reduce attendees? Maybe that's the reason we want to have a virtual hybrid event in the future. Yeah,
that's a great point. And there's something that we talk about on some webinars that are specific to types of data and things, but a lot of times we don't really bring it up, and that's contextual data. That's like a whole separate type of data. Like, the fact that we were in a pandemic in all of 2020 is a massive piece of contextual data, that you would need in order to really look at all of your results, not just events, right, but all of your results for all of 2020. Prevailing conditions, right, economic conditions, things like that. But specifically if travel budgets are back, right, if in the government, that's a big thing, but in associations as well. So that's something that would be hard to track inside like a data warehouse or an analytics tool, but would help bring needed context to all of your analysis. So great point. Okay, let's take a look. Up and down. That's up and down depending on the year. Okay. So that's a little surprising to see that one the biggest. Trending up. We didn't have any that are trending down on the long term. So that's awesome to hear. So so that tells me that this is not like an acute. It's not a life or death type situation. This is more of like a good to great, right? We feel pretty good about where we are with events, but we're all here and we're going to learn how to take the data we have and really turn that into additional revenue for our events. Okay, awesome. So really quick, right? As Greg said, we're not going to spend a long time on the PowerPoint section, but what are some of the common challenges, right? Data challenges, right? Why don't we do better with using our data to increase our events revenue, right? So a few things, right? One is collection. If we don't collect the data we need, then we can't use it, to inform our decisions, right? And perform our analyses. And it's not just, do you ask it, but do you ask it do you collect it in the right system? And is that properly connected with all of the other systems, right? And so then there's disparate systems. So we have a lot of systems that we work on with events. It's your AMS. It's maybe one or more registration platforms, third-party providers, spreadsheets, things like that. And very often they don't talk to each other. Historical data is a challenge, right? Sometimes we don't have it. Sometimes there's not a unique identifier to connect those things, right? With disparate systems. Sometimes it's just unreliable. If we use that third party, we don't get the data anyway until after the event, which is a big problem. And then maybe the most common thing is we've changed our event registration system a couple of times over the past, say, 5 to 10 years, and that creates a lot of issues with consistency and historical data and all those kinds of things. So, there are some challenges, but these all can be overcome, and we're going to, for a lot of this, we're going to assume that these are things that you've worked through. So key questions. When we perform our analysis, these are the kinds of questions. This is by no means exhaustive, but these are the types of questions that we are trying to ask, right? What are the trends or patterns in our registration data? Which cohorts or groups, right? So cohorts is a fancy name for a group. It's a group of people that you sort of pick out based on some criteria, some qualifications, some demographics, some behaviors. What factors influence first-time attendees, right? So that's speaking of cohorts, first-time attendees is a really valuable cohort to take a look at. If you can get people to attend for the first time, then very often they will continue to attend, right? If they don't, or at least you can analyze things on a loyalty basis, like which ones come year after year and which ones continue to come. And then how do we find those underserved populations, right? So there might be opportunities to provide an additional service or highlight a particular aspect of your event that some segments of your audience are just not aware of, or they're just not clear on the value, right? And then finally, how do we analyze, right? So the 4 circles on the side are the things that we typically do analyze. It's people, right, or registrants. Then we look at the registrations separately sometimes. We look at the dollars, of course, and then maybe we also look at things like cancellations as well. And then the real magic is when you're able to take that and slice and dice it by all of the other data you have. And there's just a kind of a partial list of things that we might want to do, right? So by member type or even member, non-member, right? We have a lot of non-members and a lot of other constituents that attend our events besides our members. Registration type or fee types. You want to understand not just where you are with your numbers, but maybe you're kind of lagging behind with a certain segment, right, or a certain type of registrant. What period of time you want to look at? Everything has a date to it. You want to be able to manipulate that and look at those orders or those behaviors over certain time periods by behavior. Do our volunteers register for more meetings than non-volunteers, right? Do non-members who hold a certification attend the meeting, right? Is there a correlation between the training that we offer that's required for certifications, things like that? Of course, tenure and loyalty, travel distance, we'll talk about that a little bit, or just geography generally. That can make a big difference, especially if any of us have local, or I have regional events or state level events where driving is a factor, credentials, and then lastly, engagement score, right? And so many of these things, most can be tracked on spreadsheets. If you use a third party, maybe they can provide them for you. You can get started with Power BI or Tableau. They have native connectors, so you can load some of these things up. You do have to have some skill in manipulation and joining of the data in order to make this work. But of course, we're partial to our solution Acumen. So Greg's gonna show you how to do this in Acumen with our sample data. But I do want to mention that there obviously are many ways to do this. The important thing is to think about how you want to analyze, what business questions you want to answer, and then of course to get the data into that central repository and ready for analysis. Okay.
I want to echo Bill's comment there, because one of the things we got in the comments from our last session was, if I don't have Acumen, what do I do? Part of what we want to show you today is, even if you don't have Acumen, if you're forward thinking and you're capturing this data now, you can analyze it. What I don't want to have happen is 4 years from now, you go, oh, if we only knew the demographics of our attendees for the last 4 years, that would really give us the insight we want. I want to show you some of those things and say, yeah, we should be tracking that. Let's start to track it now. Even if it's an Excel spreadsheet, we should still begin tracking it, because we know we're going to want to use it when we get there. So let me show you some of the things I think you should track. And we're going to talk about ways that you can specifically use these to boost event revenue. So here we're looking at our event overview. In my fake data, you can see that we run 3 big shows a year. We're going to learn that these shows are a little bit different. So here I've got blue as my annual, we've got our trade show, we've got our medical conference. And I can see that these attract different types of audiences. My analytics conference here, not as big as some of my other events. Bill talked about cohorts. So think about, what are the cohorts that make sense for you? What are the groups you'd want to analyze? Do you want to look at your attendees by job level or function? Do you want to look at them by registration type or name? Michael dropped a comment in the chat a few minutes ago here. He wants to look at his attendees based on the sessions they're taking or the tracks they attend. If we want to do that, we've got to either capture that data when they register, we've got to capture that maybe through the mobile app when they check off the sessions they want to attend, or we've got to capture that data on site by having them scan in with an RFID, or let's go old school, just write your name on a piece of paper when you walk in the door. If you want to track that, you just have to know, how do I plan on capturing that data? So let's look at my data here. You notice that a couple of my major job functions I'm good with, right? When we have our meetings, analysts, data scientists, developers, and operations, they're coming to our meetings on a regular basis. But I noticed there's some gaps and some holes here. So insight number 1 is QA and report writers are not coming to my meetings as much as other types of potential attendees are. And what this tells me is a couple things. This might be a threat, or this might be an opportunity. It might be an opportunity for me to create an event that fills this hole. Or it might be a threat that some other association out there is going to say, we have content for report writers and QA. We're going to start marketing to Greg's members and try and get them to come over to our event. So we need to find these areas and really fine tune our messaging to make sure we're either promoting our event correctly, or we create new products and services for them that fit those gaps. But we also want to look at the different types of events we have. Because remember, when I go to that expo, we have one specific type of attendee that typically comes, versus when we have our regional meetings and our other events, we have another demographic that attends. So not only do we want to look at the cohorts, we want to identify where we have strengths and where we have weaknesses. We then want to see if different meetings, different types of attendees come to. I often use ASAE as an example because we're all familiar with them, but there's a fairly different cohort that's going to attend the annual conference versus the tech conference versus the marketing conference. And it's our job as executives who are running these organizations to understand, what is the type of demographic that typically comes to this event? Is it going up? Is it going down? Where are the gaps and the holes in our demographics? And then how do we fill them with the right types of attendees, or with the right types of properties that those attendees want to go to? So our first mission is to identify our cohorts, see if they're growing or shrinking, see if there are specific gaps where cohorts aren't attending meetings, and see if that changes based on the meeting we have or the meeting type. Now that we've identified that, we have a good understanding of what happens at our event. The next thing we want to talk about is this year's event. So this is where we're going to do our days out, our weeks out, our traditional pacing report. And what I want to start looking for is a few things here. One is I want to look based on my cohorts, are we doing where we think or are we behind? If I know that specific types of people or specific types of attendees traditionally come to these events, are we pacing where we think we should? And if I identify a gap or an issue, I then want to start fixing that. So what I want to do is I want to take my trend analysis and I want to flip this from a running total to a count. Because what a count is going to do is it's going to show us fairly simply where we succeeded or where we haven't succeeded in the past with those specific types of people. So I'm going to flip this from a running total. We're going to go over to a count, and it's going to show me where in the past we've been successful in our calls to action. And, you know, looking at my data, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was just going to make a one quick comment. Sorry to interrupt there, but when you think about when you go from running total to count, one of the other things you can do is analyze specific segments, right? So this is a year, right? So you can see it starts at 52 weeks out and goes all the way down to the date of the actual event. Mm-hmm. And like, for example, one thing I would want to know is what's happening with that massive spike, you know, in the first few weeks, right? I mean, maybe there was some kind of promotion that we offered, you know, at this year's event to sign up for next year or something like that. Yeah. You know, but the point is there are a lot of things that happen, you know, marketing campaigns, other types of promotions. And if you know when those occur and you have this weeks out analysis for your event registrations, you can make some pretty strong inferences about the effects of those campaigns. And that's even without, you know, formally connecting and monitoring conversions and all those things that we talk about in the marketing how-to webinars.
Perfect comment, Bill. And I think we're going to get into marketing in 1 second, a little deeper here. So imagine I've got, you know, step one, we figured out who typically comes, who are the cohorts that are coming. Step two is we look at this year, are those cohorts coming or not? And then we start to segment and filter down. So, you know, looking at our cohorts, we notice that members are coming, but non-members are down this year. So we want to start looking at what in the past really got those non-members to come to our event. And then we further want to segment it because our first year non-members are down. And that's a really important piece for us because those people who experience the value of our event typically do other stuff with us. We've learned that from other sessions we've had. And what I want to identify is right here where these peaks are. Week 19, what did we do really well to get people to join? Because in there is going to lie some of the examples of our success. Let's go back to our marketing campaigns. Let's see what we did there to be able to get that success. I want to give an example of a real world customer of ours that was looking at this weeks out analysis, had an aha moment, and was able to solve it. And it's related to geography. So let's look at our registrants on a map, not only on a you know, a world perspective, but a US perspective as well. So this organization was promoting an event in New York, and they were looking at registrations on a map and where they were coming from. They were using this year filter here to be able to say this year versus that year, how are we doing? And they noticed a big gap in registrations up here in the Northwest. Okay, so this is a perfect use case for analytics. We notice something's down, let's go take an action and see what we can do about that. So they sent all these people, they targeted them, anybody who's ever been to the event from this region, they sent them another email. And they said, hey, registration's open, come buy your tickets. They went back to their pacing report and it didn't move the needle. So they were sort of scratching their heads. We identified the problem and we did what we thought would work, but it didn't have the intended result. So they took another action. They sent them a survey and they said, why aren't you all coming to our event? Bill, you've been to the event before. You live up here in the middle of you know, North Dakota. Who would live there? And you're not coming to the event this year. What are we missing? What don't we see in our data? And the answer was flights. Plane tickets from those regional airports were more expensive than normal to fly to the event this year. So the staff waited for tickets to go down. When they noticed that flights were more affordable, they then flipped that email back on and they said, you know, you need to register for the event. Now is when plane tickets are cheapest. This is when you should be able to register. They went back to their pacing report and they noticed they got them back on track. So as we're thinking about cohorts and anomalies, we want to look at like what's happening different this year than previous years, and how do we get ahead of that to be more effective with our campaigns. So item number two I talked to you about is looking at this year versus previous years as far as pacing goes, because we can act in real time to address those things. talk about one more item here is loyalty. I think loyalty is really important, and we're going to have a couple different types of metrics when it comes to loyalty. So you've got your Greg and your Mark. Greg and Mark come to your event every year, regardless. We're going to be there. We're in the 100% loyalty club. Good. You want to look for us, and if we don't register, you want to reach back out to us because we may have missed it. But you also want to look at loyalty from another perspective. You know, people come to our event, and then they come the next year. Then they come the next year, and less. You get this sort of curve where loyalty is going down. This is to be expected, but what you want to look for is where the curve increases in steepness, where we have that significant drop off. And what we're finding is it tends to be somewhere in that 2 to 3 year range, where we have a significant drop off, where Greg comes year 1, he comes year 2, but he doesn't attend year 3. And we think we know why this is happening, right? I'm really excited to come to the event the first time. I see all the sessions. I talk to all the people. I go to the exhibit hall. And when I come back the next year, I start to notice a theme. These are some of the same sessions. These are some of the same people. These are most of the same exhibitors. I'm good. I don't need to come back again. So how do we use this loyalty concept to our advantage? So we look at people who've never been, and we look at first-year attendees, and we give them our standard messaging. These are the main reasons you should come. You should be excited for our event because these are the big things people do. But when I look at those people who've been 3 and 4 years and that drop-off happens really sharp, I can change my messaging for them. Instead of saying, you should come and see all the exhibitors, what I can say is, you should come because this is what's new. This is what's different. These are the experiences you didn't have in the past that you can have now, right? So think about, going to an amusement park. You see all the shows, you ride the rides. You come back next summer, you see all the shows, you ride all the rides. And they're like, should we go back to the amusement park? Like, I've seen the shows, I've been on the rides, I'm good to go. What you didn't know is they just opened up a whole new water park. And that's why you should come to the amusement park this year, because that new thing you didn't experience is now available. And we need to position it that way.
All right. So Greg, one of the things that we talk about, and one of the reasons why our product exists really, is to measure performance, right? And to take action and kind of see how it goes. So this strikes me as a good place to talk about testing, right? Because we're talking about changing the messaging, right? Yeah. And the event is a big revenue driver for us. So maybe we're skeptical, right, to change our entire messaging or to really to reposition everything. So what do you suggest we do there?
Great question, Bill. So I think we've identified an issue. There's a drop off in loyalty at this range, and we suspect we can solve it doing a different email campaign to them. But we're not exactly sure. Do we offer them like a 3-year discount if they come? Is it a bundle we can offer? Is it, instead of here's what's really exciting, we say here's what's new? I don't really want to risk the performance of my event by testing something out that I don't know if it's successful or not. So what we recommend is, and this is why you all have these marketing automation systems, right? You've got these really powerful machines. Now's the time to use them. And what I'm going to recommend is what's called A/B testing. And maybe we even do ABCD, right? We're going to look at this cohort of people that's been 3 years in a row, and we know that drop off is significant. I'm going to load these 5,000 people into my marketing automation system, and I'm going to do a winner take all campaign. And the way this works is I'm going to pick the 3 messages I think are different that will be successful. So message A is we send them the standard marketing email. They get what everybody else gets regardless. Message B is we tell them that there's a discount available. Hey, if you're a 3rd-year person, we want you to come again. We're going to offer a discount for you to come. Message C is, hey, here's what's new. You've never seen these things before. This is what's new. And we're going to send that to 50 of our attendees here, a good sample size. And we're going to see after the next 2 or 3 days what happened. Which one of those messages was most successful in addressing this problem we found? Because a lot of times it's not just one solution. We got to try a couple things. And then we have to go back into our feedback loop and measure the success of that. And I don't know the answer. It's different for every show. But I think the answer is going to be one of those messages is going to succeed. We're going to get a higher registration from our what's new message than from our just generic everybody should come. And this in lies the winner take all, because that's the message I'm going to send to the remaining 4,000 people that are in this gap here. We think that we can do better if we test out our messaging and we target them with the right message. Good stuff. All right, let's talk about our last topic of the day is going to be predictive analytics. So So far, we've talked about like identify your cohorts, find your groups, analyze the trends over time, look at how this year's performing, see what's up or what's down. But a lot of this involves humans, right? We've got to look at the data, we've got to interpret the data, we've got to make a decision. And sometimes there's just too many variables for my brain to be able to handle. And that's where predictive analytics comes in. The model we're going to create here is looking at candidate variables to see who has attended in the past and who hasn't attended in the past. This is going to use logistics regression. We think about predictive analytics, we think about natural learning and AI coming into play to scour all that data and help determine, well, what factors really move the needle? Is loyalty an important factor in my registration? Are demographics more likely to come or not come? Are there specific behaviors like email or community or certification that really move the needle for me? Now, while we can eyeball it as humans, the predictive analytic model is just going to tell us, like, some of these things don't make the model. For my data, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're coming to my event equally, regardless. But it does matter your job function. One of those cohorts we picked is important. It does matter your email open and click rate. Some of those behaviors we looked at are important. And this model is going to allow us to identify not only which variables make the model, but which percentage of those are going to be important. And then we're going to project out this year, each one of these is a bucket of members on who's likely to attend. And this is where our fun marketing A/B testing comes in. Members on the right over here, we don't need to send them the discount code. We can exclude them from that branch of our marketing campaign. And members down here, they don't need the physical email, the physical things we're going to mail, right? The things that cost me $1 per unit. Every time I mail that glossy brochure out, it costs me money. I don't need to send it to these people. We can exclude them from the branch of our marketing campaign where we have physical fulfillment involved. But where our data scientists tell us to focus is on these people in the middle, the changeables, right? And this is where our drill throughs come in, where we can really target the best possible attendees based on what our data is telling us. So while we as humans can look through all the data and start to figure out the cohorts that make sense, we can start to figure out the trends that are or not happening this year. When we let the data help, it's going to combine all those things in one, giving us insight on the age-old question, where should I spend my next marketing dollar? If marketing is going to invest the next dollar, who should they focus on? And the answer in the data is these people in the middle.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Greg. So yes, Anira was asking, what about
actionable list?
What about our list? Yeah. So
I didn't show that part. I apologize. Anytime you see the data and you find that there's a drill through built in, what you want to do is you want to get the details, that list. Give me the list of those specific contacts that fall within that cohort. So every time we saw a bar or a chart, you just need to take that next step and click on it and say, give me that list of people.
Yeah. And so you know, like with other things, I mean, you can get to this, through Excel, right? Through pivot tables, you know, things like that to get to that list, or inside a tool like Acumen, you can do drill throughs, and then you can also export, you know, those things to upload them to your marketing automation system, for example. Okay, so let's wrap up here. Got a couple of key takeaways that we want to talk about, right? I mean, so I guess first of all, you know, begin with the end in mind, right? So that means just collect the data that you're going to need. So be mindful about that, especially if you're just getting started. Explore those cohorts, right, to find leaky buckets. And so we showed some examples of what cohorts are, but I mean, you can really start to build them based on any data that you have, anything that you have beyond the registration itself, anything about the members, anything about the customers, about the time frames, about the rates, all those kinds of things can be data that you can look at to find patterns and to find those leaky buckets. Take action and experiment, right? So those two are kind of related. So what we want you to do is, you know, find the insights in the data, decide on actions, but then you can also, you don't have to wait till next year's event, right, to see the effects of those actions, right? You can test it, you can experiment with it, you know, inside your marketing platform, for example. So, okay, so that's where we're going to leave it for today. If there are questions, happy to answer them. We kind of budget, an additional 10, 15 minutes to hang around for questions as they come in. If anyone has something that that we didn't get to that they'd like to discuss for the benefit of the group, now would be an awesome time to bring that up.
Bill, Linda here asked if we can show the event overlap tab, event meetings overlap tab. And unfortunately, we weren't planning on showing that today just for timing. We didn't show that, but I think that could be a good session down the road, how to do market basket analysis, how to identify overlap, how to use that sort of data to make our decisions. I think that's a corollary on some of the things we've talked about, whether it's events or product sales. We've shown that a few times, but we can certainly do a whole session on how to do a market basket analysis, how to do overlap analyses and leverage the data. That could be a good one.
Yeah, great. All right. Okay, so so we do have a topic for, yeah, so Sunir is asking now, can we use data from 2 different event systems? And the answer is yes. So it's very common to have, and that's kind of, one of the things that we talked about in the data challenges. That's one of the things that makes it difficult to really make sense of your data, right? For membership, I mean, it's pretty much all in one place to start with, so you're already at a bit of an advantage there. But for events, you might have one reg platform that's for your big meetings, and you have another one that's for your small meetings. Maybe your chapters or your regions have their own. Maybe you do some manually, you do some through the AMS. So there's a lot to keep track of, and you have to be diligent, with making sure that you maintain unique IDs, between those systems, so you can join that data. But absolutely, I mean, you can do that either with a data warehouse or data lake type system like Acumen, or you can absolutely join some of those, with code, right? If you have someone that can do that, or you can do that inside some of the analysis platforms like Tableau or Power BI.
Don't leave your data behind. Your data is a valuable asset your association owns. As good stewards of the data, we need to make sure we're capturing the data, we're capturing the right things in our data, and we're retaining that data. What I would hate to have happen is, well, we switched registration platforms, that data's gone. We didn't ask that question. We can't go back and ask it, right? So part of what we wanted you to think about today was, what are the cohorts we're analyzing? Are we capturing them, and are we retaining them? Because that's going to be the key to long-term success here.
All right. So as we talk about the topic for next time, just a quick informal poll. You can answer in the chat. Is anyone on the call 100% happy with their data quality?
I'll be honest, I'm not. No.
I don't know. Is anyone? That's right. Okay. So that kind of tees us up, right? There's, there's probably 1 or 2 out there. We haven't met them yet. Maybe we will one day, but the idea is, dirty data is a big barrier, right? There's fear, right? There's uncertainty associated with that. And so a lot of times it's something that prevents you from moving forward with all sorts of initiatives that relate to getting more value from your data, right? Event registration revenue is just one example. And so what we're going to talk about next week is how to deal with those fears, how to clean your data to a degree, but really how to move forward with all the other things you want to do with your data, acknowledging and improving on your data quality as you go along. So this should be a fun one. So hopefully you guys can join us. We don't have the exact date nailed down, but you'll be hearing from our marketing team very soon about that. And lastly, maybe next week. And lastly, we would love for you to complete our survey. We got really amazing results, from these so far in terms of participation. And as Greg said, we're actually using all of the data that we get from those. So we're not ignoring them. We're looking at that very closely, and we'll use it to inform our future discussions. So if anyone has another question, now's the time. If not, then we will adjourn for now, and we'll see you very soon.
Bill, as always, a pleasure. Attendees, thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoy doing these. These only happen because you asked us, and the feedback and data you give us is the direction we're heading. So let us know what you thought. Let us know what we can do next to answer more of your questions. I'm excited to learn more about the fear of overcoming my dirty data. So I'm excited to build all the content for that session for you in a couple weeks now.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Bye,
day.
everyone.